Welcome everybody to the next interview for AATRN, the Applied Algebraic Topology Research Network. Applied topology is a research area with a strong sense of community, and we've been working hard to keep it that way during the pandemic. So thanks for joining today. Within our community, we have a lot of knowledge, not only about research, but also professional development. And the goal of this interview series is to hear and to learn from and to celebrate our community stories. So the interviewer today, i.e. the person asking the questions, is Professor Martin Raussen. Professor Raussen received his doctorate from Georg Wilhelms University in Göttingen, Germany, and he is now a professor of mathematical sciences at Algebraic University in Denmark. He has served on the executive committee of the European Mathematical Society from 2009 to 2016, and also as its vice president from 2011 to 2016. His research expertise is in algebraic and differential topology and in applications of algebraic topology to computer science. In particular, he has helped to lead the research area called directed algebraic topology, which models concurrency in theoretical computer science. Professor Raussen has experience with interviews, having conducted interviews with winners of the Abel Prize in mathematics from 2003 until 2016. And these interviews have been published in the newsletter of the European Mathematical Society and in the notices of the American Mathematical Society. But today, I think, is his first online interview. So thank you, Professor Raussen, for hosting our interview today.
So thank you very much for this introduction, Henry. And also thanks to all the AATRN people for establishing this extremely productive network, and also for the interview series that has been very interesting and also entertaining so far. And I hope it will remain like that after this occasion. I'd like to greet all the participants. And this is from Denmark, as it has been said. Denmark is a small country in southern Scandinavia with less than 6 million inhabitants, hosting 8 universities. So let me now present to you my interview partner, Lisbeth Fajstrup. Lisbeth grew up in Aarhus, and that is Denmark's second largest city, situated on the Western Peninsula. It has around 300,000 inhabitants. After high school, Lisbeth took a 2-year break before she started studying at Aarhus University with a major in mathematics, combined with a minor in physics. And at the university, she was, I would say, discovered, encouraged, and stimulated by Denmark's certainly most prominent algebraic topologists, Ib Madsen. You might have heard about the Madsen-Weiss theorem on the homology of mapping graphs groups as one of his achievements. After Lisbeth took a master's degree at Aarhus University, she worked with Ib Madsen as her supervisors on properties of various versions of K-theory, pure algebraic topology, although connected to algebraic geometry, number theory, lurking in the background. And more or less at the same time, Lisbeth gave birth to the first of her 2 daughters, and she moved together with her husband to Aalborg, which is about 100 kilometers or 60 miles north of Aarhus, to assume first a temporary position at the then still quite new university in Aalborg. And there she became my colleague almost 30 years ago. And now I need to talk a little on a topic that is common for Lisbeth and myself. Aalborg University has a particular emphasis on applicability of research results in the surrounding society, with the impact that the 2 of us were gently, and sometimes not so gently, pushed to switch our interest from pure algebraic topology to something more applicable. So by a chance event, we went in late 1995 to a conference with the title New Connections Between Mathematics and Computer Science at the Isaac Newton Institute in Cambridge, UK. And there we got quite excited by talks making links between algebraic topology on the one side and concurrency theory and distributed computing in computer science on the other. After some very preliminary discussions, we contacted one of the speakers, Eric Goubou from Paris. He was then very young, at least compared to us, computer scientists with a sound mathematical background. And that then became the beginning of a very fruitful, quotation marks, French connection. Together with Eric, we started a new research line that we baptized Directed Algebraic Topology. And you will have to explain it a little bit, Lisbeth. And moreover, a conference and workshop series called GETCO, where GETCO stands for Geometric and Topological Methods. At first it was in concurrency theory, and then later on it was computer science. It's not the only acronym that has changed its meaning. And certainly just to have started this adventure was helpful for Lisbeth to be promoted to a permanent position at Aalborg University. Congratulations. And I mean it to Aalborg University in this case. Preaching directed algebraic topology, we have over the years participated in many conferences within applied algebraic topology. And a little from the sideline, we followed with great interest the development of system homology and topological data analysis with its many connections to statistics, engineering, and the natural sciences and other sciences. Lisbeth has lately actively joined this endeavor. She grouped up with a statistician from our department and with colleagues in material science in an attempt to study properties of varieties of glass with point of departure in the geometry of their molecular arrangements. With immediate success, among others, an article in prestigious Science Advances, and also a grant from the Danish National Science Foundation, and that's difficult to get. Apart from being a highly esteemed university teacher and from raising a family, Lisbeth has been particularly active on two other fronts. Just the headlines, one of them is raising public awareness of mathematics. This is talks for the general public and a dedicated blog. And the other one would be Women in Mathematics initiatives, in particular within Europe. But now it's time for me to end my presentation, my introduction, to start asking questions and to let Lisbeth speak for herself. So Lisbeth, you grew up in Aarhus in the 1960s and 1970s. Could you tell us a bit about the school system in this part of Europe? And do you have any particular reminiscences about mathematical or STEM experiences from your time as a child or as a youngster?
Thank you, Martin, for the very nice introduction. The school system in Denmark is, let me say at the time, because things change, as everyone knows. So it was 9 years of primary and secondary school sort of in one go, no sort of gap in between, no real change. And then after that, you would choose high school. You go to high school, or you might. So I cannot say that I was very interested in mathematics as such through primary school and secondary school. I mean, I was interested in everything. I wanted to learn. I mean, I'm the kind of person who wants to learn, and this was also true when I had to choose for. I mean, I had a good mathematics teacher in primary school, I should say. I mean, in the last years at least. So when I had to choose, when I went to high school, I had to choose between, well, you might say humanities, languages, or then the sciences. And I had doubts because, first of all, I was good at both. My German teacher was really, really annoyed when I went up choosing science. And the main reason for choosing science was that this would not close as many doors in the sense of the next, getting into university and so on. So that's actually the reason for choosing the science line. So I would say I've been interested in many things. The same thing is true actually in high school. I like learning. I mean, I like learning about old Greek stuff and things like that. I've always liked learning. I mean, I was a child who could read when I was 4.5 or something like that, which gives you the opportunity to learn a lot because you can read about it. So I did that a lot. So in high school, I met mathematics for the first time. I mean, real mathematics as real as it gets. And I had a very good high school teacher. He had a PhD, or maybe he was close to getting one. I'm not quite sure, but he was very good at mathematics. He could tell stories going far into mathematics, and he saw a talent in me as well. So he gave me extra exercises. I would get, he would have prizes for solving exercises and stuff like that. And I enjoyed that very much. So yeah. But I mean, so I have not sort of chosen when I was, I don't know, very early, I want to be a mathematician. That's for sure. Certainly not. And also you might say these 2 gap years. I had 2 gap years. I mean, that was part of it was, I think that, well, this idea of studying mathematics, that was a weird thing. Maybe I could sort of get over it if I left for a while, but well, I didn't get over it. So yeah. So yeah.
What did you actually do during your sabbatical?
Well, I worked in a kibbutz in Israel. I was a volunteer in Israel in the kibbutz, which was something lots of people did. I mean, this was where you met a lot of people from all around the world. I mean, lots of hippies were coming through Israel. And then after that, I was working cleaning train wagons actually to make money for this at home. And then then I went to the US as a camp counselor in the summer in Texas, Wichita Falls, Texas, which was gave me an accent for a while. And after that, I went to a Danish. We have the system of folk high schools, they're called. So this you can go for a couple of months or something, and you can do, I mean, whatever you're interested in. And I went to one with music because I'm very interested in music. I've been singing all my life. And I learned to play the trombone, which no one would want me to do now, I'm sure, but I did that. And I was in a big band, which was good fun. I played How High the Moon solo on my trombone. So, so I enjoyed that a lot as well. So I think this is more or less what I did in the 2 years, yeah.
Apparently you were not discouraged from studying mathematics. So let me ask, how was it like to study mathematics and physics at Aarhus University as a young woman in the 1980s? Were there features that you particularly liked or others that you particularly disliked?
Well, I was lucky in the sense that before, I think a year or 2 before I arrived there, they had decided that they would group. So we were groups of 15, 20 students or something for exercise sessions, and they would group us with 50-50 women and men, and then have groups of only men, which some of the guys complained about, and they were told they could go study French if they wanted to see some girls, which I really liked. And so that was lucky, I think, because it gave sort of an atmosphere that you were that there were enough of us in that way. So, but of course, I mean, I think only. In the beginning, I didn't realize how few we were. I think this happens later. You know, you start looking around and see where did they go. So yeah. But also one thing that was very important for me was that I met Ib, as you say. I mean, Ib Madsen. He was what's that called? He was a TA. The university lacked money at the time, which meant that the professors had to be TAs, and which was very good for me. So he was a TA I've had him as a TA all the way through the bachelor's studies. He was a TA in algebra, in geometry and whatnot. And he did that on purpose. He wanted to follow my group through sort of bachelor studies. And also we really wanted him to. So he's been sort of a support for me all the way through. I mean, that was very important to me. So, yeah.
So now it's several years. Let me ask you whether you were always certain that mathematics and you were a really good match.
No, I had doubts. I mean, I had doubts. There was, especially when I started, the master's program. So the bachelor studies is 3 years, and then after that you go into the master's program. And I had a course which I found very difficult, and I made the mistake of trying to read the introduction to the book. I mean, you should never do that. I know that now. I tried to read the introduction, and it was just impossible. And also at the time, my now husband and boyfriend had moved away from town, so he was far away, and there were many reasons why I thought, oh God, why am I here? Why do I leave him out there and go back to the university to study this thing? And I talked to Ib, because this is what I did. And he then told me he said, read this. And what he told me to read was a proof of the Poincare conjecture, and that helped. And I have no idea why, but it actually did. It's very, very, very strange in hindsight, but well, he kind of, yeah. So the Poincare, Poincare duality, proof of Poincare duality, of course, yeah. So that's, yeah. So yeah, that helped.
So in a little more general perspective, how difficult was it for you to combine studies and social life? And now you pointed at it already, finally also finding a partner for life.
I don't think it was that difficult, actually. I mean, lots of people had it was, of course, when he moved, it was difficult, but so we had sort of a weekend relationship. He got a job, so, well, so I guess that was a bit difficult, but I don't think, he was part of sort of the group I was in, so that was fine, yeah. So.
To come to a completely different area, can you still remember your first own mathematical discovery and the emotions connected with it?
My mathematical discovery, well,
it doesn't have to be a very big thing. Just,
I remember once solving a problem. I mean, so Ib was a TA, and there was an exercise that he couldn't solve, and then I went home and solved it. And I'm sure, I mean, he just couldn't because he didn't put his mind to it, I'm sure. But I was very, very, very proud because I thought, this is, whoa, yeah. So it was nothing. It was nothing, I'm sure, but it was something in differential geometry, and yeah. So that and also sometime in high school when there was some exercise that are solved in a different way than what the teacher had expected. That was also sort of a big thing, you know. Always this doing things differently from what they expected. I've always liked that. So yeah.
Sounds good. Moving ahead, would you describe with a very broad pen stroke for this interview the area that your thesis work is connected with?
So I've moved far away from that, but
yeah, no.
It is. I mean, it is a theorem in sort of equivariant stable theory, which is where you try to. I mean, fixed points are not very well behaved on the homotopy, so instead you study homotopy fixed points. So it's this thing, when are the fixed points more or less the same as homotopy fixed points? So it's a theorem in that direction, which, yeah, so something like that. So, yeah. But, yeah, I haven't done that, I mean, for many, many, many years, as you know, so, yeah.
And it certainly is pure algebraic topology with no applications, at least in the first front.
I don't know if any.
No.
No.
So if I remember correctly, it was within 1 year you defended your thesis. You gave a quite difficult birth to your first daughter, and then you moved and started a university career at Aalborg University. Gosh, that must have been a difficult time. Please.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm very, so another lucky thing is that at that time we had just in Denmark, there was paternity leave. I mean, you know, so for the Americans, this is, I mean, very strange, but we have a very long, at the time there was maternity and paternity leave. I think it was 26 weeks after birth, and the husband or the father could take the last 10 weeks. And my husband is very modern, and at the time it was that they could do it, but they didn't do it, but he did it. So he took he had the last 10 weeks, and I mean, that was so good for him, for my daughter, and for me, of course. But it's this taking part was very very important for me and yeah, for the family. But also, I mean, I think everyone knows that after that it's very difficult to get back to research. It takes some time, and you have to allow yourself a little, come on, I have a small child, I don't sleep at night. I mean, can I do research? I don't think so. So there's, I mean, that was difficult, of course, but yeah. So.
And as far as I know, it didn't become much easier right afterwards. Your first position was limited to 4 years, if I remember correctly. And the teaching load at our university was, and still is, high. There was pressure from the university to produce quickly applicable results. You had a second child demanding its parents. How did you cope with all this pressure?
Well, I mean, I didn't do much research, I guess. I mean, it's the thing is, I've said this to many young women. The thing is, we should always remember that the Janis Joplin thing, that freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. I have not had the freedom of not having. I have had things to lose. I have a family. And that's a good thing. It also keeps you grounded. It keeps you, I mean, it gets in the way of things, but it is the way in some ways. I mean, I don't know if you can say that, but but I think I'm also the thing that I'm interested in many things. I mean, I'm saved by, well, then I do something else. I put a lot of effort into teaching or to whatever. I mean, so. And also this thing about moving into to these applications in computer science was, of course, it was a risky move because I did not have my permanent position by then. But it was also, it was a good thing we did that. So yeah. So I've coped because I have a very, one should always choose the father of the children very well. So I did that. Yeah.
That's certainly very good advice.
Yeah.
So just to become counterfactual for just a minute or so, I mean, if you wouldn't have gotten this permanent position that you got at Aalborg University, what do you think would have happened then?
I think I would have become a high school teacher. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I mean, this is the thing in Denmark. I mean, the education to become a high school teacher is the same as sort of the education for going into right up till the master's level. So I think I would have done that, and then I would have been teaching 16 to 19-year-olds, which was that would have been fun. I think. I mean, they are a bit stupid, but they're fun as well at that age. So, yeah.
Okay, we have already touched upon switching interests within topology, but to more applied areas. So can you describe it a little bit more closely, first of all, the switch from K-theory or whatever you were interested in, equivariant topology to directed algebraic topology, and maybe more importantly, what is this subject, directed algebraic topology, in connection with concurrency theory? What is it all about?
Well, so the thing is that concurrency in computer science is when more than one processor works together. And there are many, many models of that. And one model of that is that an execution is a path through some shape, which models, and it has to, so here is one processor, here's another processor, and then there is this path, which then when this runs and this runs, it provides a path. And they cannot go backwards in time. So this is time, this is time. So this means that this has to be increasing in both coordinates. So this is directed. And so an execution is a path, time-directed path. And then there are places where, I mean, where you cannot go, this path cannot go because of access. There are various models of that as well, but because maybe they want to access a resource at the same time, and maybe this resource doesn't allow that, it's a printer or it's a memory or whatever it is. So this means there are holes in this space. So now it gets interesting. Now it gets topology, because you have this space with holes in it. And so it looks now like it's sort of Euclidean, but of course, I mean, in computer science, they have loops, and lo and behold, it's not Euclidean anymore. So it's not just, so it becomes more complicated. So now you want to study these executions up to, well, fortunately, up to homotopy, or rather up to directed homotopy, because equivalence of executions in this model is the same as deformation of execution paths. So this is where the fun begins. I mean, because this means that algebraic topology does not apply on the nose. So there's stuff to do, and yeah. So that's sort of the upshot. And there are many. I mean, my sort of contribution is in many ways it's sort of in many different directions, because I mean, as you know very well, Martin, I like cooking up counterexamples to whatever you guys find think is true. So things like that, cooking up examples and counterexamples, and trying to and also trying to study some of the combinatorial versions of this is what I've been doing, and it's good fun, and it's good fun also because of collaborating. I mean, I really find it important in mathematics to have good collaborators. I mean, that's I mean, come for the math and stay for the people. I really think that's important, and yeah. So, and in particular, the applied math community, the applied topology community is a community like that, right? That this is also, I mean, this, as Henry said in the beginning, it's these collaborations are really fruitful because they're fun, and we are, I mean, yeah, we're nice people. So, yeah.
I'll ask you a bit more about collaboration a bit later on, but let me just come to the mathematics first. And ask me, this may be a bit difficult to answer. Do you have a favorite research topic and or result within directed algebraic topology? So which area do you really makes you tick?
Well, I'm not sure about that. I mean, yeah, that I actually don't know. I mean, I've done quite a lot with covering theory. I mean, with directed coverings, and I put a lot of effort into that. So I kind of like, I mean, that went a long way, I think. Maybe, I mean, that could be done more, but I like what I've done in that respect, also because there are lots of unexpected things coming up, and unexpected examples, and things that are a lot more difficult than you think to begin with, which again is more fun if it's more difficult than you think it is. So yeah, so that I like. Yeah.
So let me now come to what you've been starting lately. So after many conferences, listening to new findings in persistent homology and to new applications of topological data analysis, you have yourself become actively engaged in this quickly emerging field. So would you tell us a bit about this new research field, and then maybe at the same time also describe how you made these connections, how joint research involved, and also about your hopes for the future?
Yeah, so the thing is, I've been wanting to, after seeing how efficient topological data analysis is, I mean, at all these very nice conferences we go to and presented by all these very nice people, I've wanted to sort of, you might say, bring it home. I mean, because I've just thought there would be people in our university who wanted to know, and who should know, because they could do good things with it. So so first of all, I talked to our local statisticians, and we had some starting things there, but I mean, and also they brought in, I mean, a colleague who's now in a permanent position, the statistician that I'm working with now, he was sort of brought in because I got them interested in this. And then I thought, okay, so who wants to know? Who of the engineers wants to know? So I asked actually the head of department in physics, who I met in the coffee room. So I said, well, I mean, who would want to do something? I mean, I know they can do something with these sort of glassy or amorphous structures. Who has something with amorphous structures? And then he told me that, oh, there's this, I mean, he gave me a few names, and then one of them was this chemist. He says, I think he's the one. So I sent him an email and I said, well, I mean, have you seen these new things? Do you want to know? And he did want to know. So, I mean, so he's smart. He can see when something is useful, and he also knows what to use it for in chemistry. So and then fortunately also our statistician colleague wanted to join in. Otherwise I would have been a bit lost, I think. So it's so I think, and then so we wrote this fancy paper together with them, and we so what we do is we study glassy structures, and those who have been to some of the ATMCS conferences have seen other people work with glassy structures. So this is not new. I mean, but we do other things for studying glassy structures. And now we have a National Science Foundation grant. I mean, mostly so, and a postdoc will come, and I hope it will grow. I think it can grow. I think there's room for it, also because it is pure math and then also applied, and that is very much in vogue at our university, as you know. So yeah, so it's good fun. It's yeah, and nice people again. So yeah.
So you started already talking about collaboration. So let me get you ask about some features there. When preparing the interview, of course, I looked at your publication lists, and I noticed that in the beginning you had many single or several single authored publications, but recently, or over a number of years, most of the publications are the result of collaboration. So as you already told us, you enjoy collaboration in mathematics. So can you give some more comments on the importance of collaboration and of personal networks, both for your own work, but also how you perceive it in general?
Well, I think, first of all, I think it's good to have someone to play ball with. I mean, someone to talk to, and someone who also to kill your most silly ideas so I really like collaborations. I mean, I think it's very efficient too. I mean, if you want something done, it's very efficient to have smart collaborators, and it's also especially in a place like ours where we teach a lot. It's good to have someone else who's asking you, well, have you thought about this and that? Because if you have to think about it yourself, maybe you don't. So having someone come around and sort of push you a little bit, I think that's important as well. So yeah,
I can vouch for that too.
yeah.
A little bit in the same line, conferences do play certainly an important role for scientific work and also for the social life of researchers, as you already told us. Can you expand with some personal reminiscences? And let me in particular ask you about, you told me several years ago, and a little bit to my surprise, that conferences arranged by women mathematicians were different in style. How is that?
Well, so this was many years ago. I went to my first European Women in Mathematics conference, and it was a bit reluctantly, I would say. It was because a colleague at the Technical University, I mean, one of the other few women in math in Denmark, she told me that this was worth doing, Bodil Branner. So I went to this conference, and there was this atmosphere which was very friendly and which was very collaborative, and where there were lots of And it also, it does feel different sitting among lots of women who are all interested in learning about the P-adics or something like that. It's just a different feeling. So, and then also because we were from many different fields, so we had to cook up ways of giving talks to a general audience, because it was always a general audience. And so one thing we came up with, not me, but someone else, was this idea of planted idiots. So a planted idiot is someone who gets the job of being in the audience and asking questions. And you have that role, so you can ask questions, and everyone knows you ask questions because you have that role. It's not because you yourself don't understand, it's because you think someone else doesn't. And that's, I mean, that's very liberating to have that role, that you can just ask these silly questions, that the ones where you think, oh, I don't remember the definition of that, I'm sure everybody else does, but now you can ask this question and just pretend you think nobody else does. So yeah, so we came up with that, and that sort of, that sets the scene for it's okay to ask questions, because once, as we all know, once someone asks questions, other people also ask questions. So it was a different atmosphere, and it was very sort of, yeah, collaborative, and yeah, I've enjoyed those conferences very much. That's for sure. So yeah.
Maybe we should learn of these experiences also for other conferences where it's not particular women. Let me touch a little bit on teaching also. As we already told the audience, we are teaching a lot, and you are a highly esteemed university teacher. Do you have any particular teaching strategies, philosophies, or advice?
Well, philosophies, I mean, it's always, I think it's important to remember when we're in a university like ours, where we teach engineers and so on, they do not all want to learn about proofs and so on. I mean, to really think about what they want to learn and what they need. I mean, it's, I mean, I've been known to say to, I mean, in front of economy students or something, I seriously have to prove this. You can look away while I do it, because I mean, I know you won't be, all of you won't be interested. So that's one thing that you have to really think about the audience. Another thing is that when you walk into a room as the mathematician, you come in with a lot of sort of power, or maybe you're intimidating, because, I mean, so be approachable. That's another thing. I mean, have them, but not in the way of you can come to my office whenever you want to. I mean, because that would be annoying. But have, I mean, ask me questions and be so yeah. So well, I think that's important as well. So yeah, I don't know if that's a philosophy.
At least it's practical.
Yeah. Yeah.
A little bit in the same area. You have for many years been our department's link, I would say, to high school mathematics, and have used a lot of time and energy in a number of committees. So what is this endeavor about, and what have you been able to achieve?
Well, so I've been on many of these various committees, and my role is for instance, telling them that, well, new math has appeared, so maybe the curriculum should change, and also sometimes, well, I mean, in the last few years, it's more been like, please, you cannot change that, because we have to start from something in universities. So sort of telling them about that. And then I've played a role of, I mean, I've been giving lots and lots and lots of talks to high school teachers, to high school kids, to, I mean, yeah, things like that. So, yeah.
So what are you talking about then, for example?
Well, I mean, I just gave a talk to high school teachers about the mathematics behind epidemics. So, which for some reason they're interested in by now. So about tests, and about herd immunity, and about all these things that you can, all these things that are not the SIR model, because they know about that already. So I tell them about other things that are easier, that they can do in high school. So things like that, or I have a talk about the quaternions, which is something about maybe an extra gimbal for Christmas, because that's what that's what Michael Collins, one of the astronauts, said when said to Houston when they only had 3. They missed this extra 4th coordinate for rotation. So so he said that actually to Houston in the communication, which is with the Apollo, which I find very amusing. So yeah, so lots of things. I've given lots and lots and lots of talks. So yeah.
And apart from giving talks, you are also a very experienced blogger, blogging about a vast number of mathematical topics.
That's true. I've been blogging before WordPress was a thing. So which for those who know WordPress know that's a long time ago. I started blogging about the numbers show, and I've actually since realized that there are lots of things going on in the numbers show that thinking about the new things with Black Lives Matter and so on. I mean, there are some iffy things going on in the numbers show, which I think I should recognize by now, but I didn't at the time. So math is used not all for good there. But so the numbers show is this crime solving show where you throw mathematics at things, or you throw things that are based at mathematics at these crimes, and you solve them. And the mathematics is, of course, not explained very clearly. So I had this blog where for every episode, I would explain the mathematics. And it's very different mathematics. So it took a lot of Googling and a lot of asking the colleague down the hall, could you explain this to me so that I can explain it at an even lower level? So yeah. And that's again, this part, I love learning. So yeah, love learning new math and explaining it. Yeah, I really do. So I think I have about 300 blog entrances by now. So, and they're not short because I'm not good at writing short things. So they're very long.
That's probably close to world record.
Yeah.
On another front, during many years, you have been very actively engaged in women in mathematics committees, in particular within Europe. What is in it for you, and what is in it for the community?
Well, in the beginning, I mean, these European women in math and other things, they were for me. I mean, they were community for me. They were network for me. They were meeting lots of. I mean, it's the thing that if you're the only woman at your place, or I mean, we've been 2, but then meeting other women, you have to go somewhere and maybe out of the country. So it was network for me. But later, it's been very much about the next generations, about trying to help them. I mean, and to also sometimes just point to the fact that there are no women in this and that, and or way too few in this and that, and why, and because sometimes it's just not noticed. So there's been things like that, and there's more power if you're on the European Committee for Women in Mathematics on the European Math Society. There's more power in that than just sitting in a corner yelling at the screen. So yeah. So, and also another thing I should mention is lately this was in the beginning it was European Women in Mathematics, and now, which was this, as I said, this more general, and it was always general talks, but a few years ago, I was invited to join the Women in Topology network, and to give where we senior women, which is by now me, as I'm sure you realize, present a topic and start a working group, and we work together. And I have this working group, and we're working in Google Hangouts and with Slack and GitHub and whatnot, and have done it before the pandemic where everyone had to. And so this research group, just doing math, I mean, doing math with young women, it's so important, and it's so efficient in the sense, not that they get a network with me, but that they get a network with each other. I mean, they give each other advice about postdoc positions and about, I don't know, healthcare in the US and stuff like that. So it's, yeah. So that's the new thing. That's the way of doing it now, I'm very sure. So, yeah.
But there are still certainly all too few women in Danish and Nordic mathematics at the university level, at least. it seems to have improved a little, at least in the US. So why is it so bad in the Nordic countries, and what could be done to improve the situation?
The thing is, I don't know, Martin.
Yeah.
I just read in something on Nature about what was it called, survivorship bias or something like that. When you ask people who are in STEM why there are so few people in STEM, those are the wrong people to ask. So that's all. But the thing is, actually, if you look at the universities in Denmark, it's very different. At the University of Copenhagen, they have 20% women now. And why? So I mean, at least you could have other heads of department ask them how they did it. I mean, I know something about how they did it, because they're now, unfortunately, late Erik Kjær Pedersen decided, when he became head of department, he decided to change it. And then he changed it. I mean, he changed it by looking at the women who were there and saying, wow, they are professor material. Why don't we make them professors? And then he did that. I mean, that was one thing. And then and you know, you can change things if you want to. So, and he really, really wanted to. So well, I mean, if he can get to 20%, right? I mean, but another thing is that nobody thinks nobody knows that is, well, we do, but there is this idea in Denmark that Denmark is the best country in the world, which in many ways it is. But this also means that when the percentage is this low in Denmark, everyone will think this is a natural state of affairs, right? And this is how it is. And this is, I mean, if it's different in other countries, that's because they did it wrong. That's sort of, you know, so yeah. So that's one thing. Yeah.
So we have to wrap up. But my last question would be a question about your life outside of mathematics. What are your main private interests? What are your hobbies? And do you have any time and energy to follow up on them?
Well, I read quite a few books, not enough, as most people would probably say. I still like to read. I mean, I've been doing since I was 4.5, so I've had time. So I read. I used to be backseat driver on my husband's motorcycle, but he sold the motorcycle this summer, so not that anymore. And then I used to sing in a choir. I don't do that anymore, but I do still. I mean, I do like music a lot. I go to concerts and stuff like that. And then, which is, I mean, a stereotype for a woman my age, I knit a lot. And there are online communities for knitting, which I also, I mean, those were very early on, actually. So because knitting is, I think it's connected with, I mean, if programming and knitting is sort of connected. So very early on, and in a very primitive way, they were sort of online knitting communities. So yeah, so I do that as well. So yeah, and yeah, so I guess that's, yeah. And then we go hiking. I go hiking with my husband and with my my younger daughter and her boyfriend. We go hiking, not day hikes, not. I don't want to sleep in a tent. So yeah. So.
Okay, thank you very much, Lisbeth. I think I have to stop now in order to give the audience time to ask questions. Please do. Elkan, you're on.
Okay, thank you. So we actually have a number of questions, but there's no need to get through all of them. So feel free to answer them at your own pace and take it wherever you'd like to go. So in no particular order, one question from the audience is, how would you describe your typical day, and how much time in that day do you spend doing research?
Oh, do we have a typical day? I don't know. I mean, does anyone? So right now it's in many days I stay at home because I have my home office now. Since I set that up for the pandemic, I now have a very well functioning home office. So I do that, and then I go teach or something, or go to the university, and so. Yeah. So I don't know that I have a typical day, actually. That's I don't think so. Yeah, I walk the dog. That's always the thing. Yeah.
Fair enough. So the next question is what advice or experiences do you have in terms of finding collaborators and developing collaborations?
Well, I think as for the connections to the chemists, I did that myself. I mean, I wrote him an email and went there. As for the connections with Eric Goubot in computer science, it was by accident. It was, or I mean, by luck, because he was in a. We were at this conference that Martin mentioned in the Newton Institute in Cambridge, and there was a reception at the Cambridge University bookstore, and I met him. He was looking at a book by Peter May, and I said, "Whatever do you need that for?" and since then, I mean, we've been friends. So yeah, so that's. I don't know how. I mean, I think for me, I need to have a personal sort of relation in some ways. I need to like the people I work with. I'm not sure that's true for everyone. I think people can sort of separate it, but I cannot. I mean, yeah. So yeah, but look around the university. I mean, when you have your TDA machine, look around and see and ask people. I mean, what kind of problems do you have? And yeah.
That's helpful. Another question on the list. What was one new math topic or interesting fact that you learned from your blog on the show Numbers?
Oh, lots of things from, well, I mean, curvelets, which is not wavelets. It's when you study sort of brush strokes and so on. There's something called curvelets. And well, many things from statistics, since I don't know any statistics, and there was some statistics. So I think, yeah, I mean, there is in the very beginning, in the very first episode, there's something about how to, if you know where crimes were committed, you can sort of go back and find out where they originate from. And there's a very nice picture of a sprinkler with water coming out that you could, from where the water drops go, you can maybe go back and find out where they came from. Whereas if you know where you don't know where each water drop will go, so I mean, there's something like that, which is Bayesian statistics. if you try to do it, yeah. So that's something I learned.
You did mention something about when you look back at the show, there was some maybe problematic math lessons there.
Well, I mean, this is the police in Los Angeles, so I mean, I think that tells you. I mean,
fair enough.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, there was also, I think there was some connection to this shot spotter and stuff like that, which I know is highly controversial right now. So, I mean, this thing about realizing there's been a gunshot, and that's been used in very iffy ways now, at least. Yeah. So, I mean, then I just thought that was very cool, which shows you that. Well, I don't think so. Yeah.
So another question is, if for some reason you wouldn't or couldn't be a mathematician or a math teacher or anything adjacent, what job would you have liked to have done, or do you think you probably would have ended up doing?
Well, my youngest daughter once when she was in school, she was asked what her dream job was, and she said, "I want to be a musical star on Broadway," which is if you ask for a dream. And then everybody said, "Well, you can't say that," and she said, "Well, I mean, I can say it. It can be a dream." So I think I could have done many things. I have been interested in many things in my life, and I could have done many things. So. Yeah, many people thought I should be a doctor, mostly because in high school, if you're smart, they think you should be a doctor. I'm not sure that would have been a good idea. So.
The next question is, so that would be a more heavy question. So many young applied topologists are coming into the field without necessarily passing through pure topology or algebra, as may have been the case in prior generations. What advice would you give to a young researcher in terms of balancing the sort of new applied field with the necessity of developing a grounding in the fundamentals of the sort of pure side of the field that was the basis for it?
I think in topological data analysis, we need many different flavors of people. So, I mean, you need people who are very good with algorithms, you need people who are very good with topology, and I mean, you do have to understand the basics, and I do realize that I mean, just understanding homology is actually very difficult. I mean, I realize that when I try to explain it to chemists. I mean, that's not easy. So maybe just pick it up along the way when you need it. I mean, go watch one of these very nice videos on this channel. I mean, maybe and learn it that way. Because that's one of the great things about this field, that it needs. I mean, there are computer scientists and many people that are needed in this field. There are people who do category theory, and there's and it's all. No one knows all of it. That's for sure. That's and that's not. I mean, it's long past that.
And I think I have one or two final quick questions. What is, or which are, maybe time for, what is one of your favorite counterexamples that you created, and what was it a counterexample for or to?
Well, maybe a directed structure on the predictive plane, because at some point we thought that you couldn't, that they had to be orientable to get a directed structure on them. So that was yeah. So that's one. I mean, so yeah. I don't know if it's my favorite. I have quite a few of them, because it's, yeah. It's something I do. I cook them up. I think this doesn't seem right. I wonder why it doesn't seem right. And then I start sort of building them. So, yeah.
It's a tough question for the last minute of an interview. And just the final question is, do you remember what was that question that you solved that your TA, Ib Madsen, couldn't solve at first?
No, I don't. No, I don't.
Fair enough. Okay, well, thank you so much for answering all of the audience's questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Martin and Lisbeth, for the interesting and engaging interview. You've given us a lot of ideas to reflect upon and to think more about. And thanks also to the audience for joining today and for your thoughtful questions. And we hope to see you all in October, when Robert Adler will be interviewed by Omar Bukrowski. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.